Good evening, everybody. How you doing tonight? Pastor Mark's at a conference down in Phoenix this week, so here I am. You probably all know by now that we're into a series that's going to run on Monday nights through this month on disaster preparedness. This can be kind of a scary topic for some people, especially if you're not prepared and you don't know what to do. The first thing I'd like to do is just tell you, don't be afraid. Put your fear in God and trust Him. Absolutely all the time, every place. Be praying. There's no reason to be afraid. This series is designed to give you some practical things you can do to prepare for disaster wherever you are, in your car, on the road someplace, at home. We just want to bring to you some practical products and tools and knowledge that you can use. Okay, so let's take just a moment to pray. Father, I just thank you for Pastor Mark's leadership in this area. This is something that's pertinent to the day that we're in. And we all have something we can learn here, some of us more, some of us less. But I just ask you to be with us tonight. And whatever words I speak or the other speakers speak, I ask that you'll help people take those to heart where they're pertinent. And if it's not from you or it's not good advice, I ask you'll just have everybody dismiss that. Father, I ask your blessing on everybody that's watching tonight. I seek your blessing here on the people that are here with us in person. Thank you, Father, in Yeshua's name. Amen. So probably the next thing that comes up, especially for people that don't know me, is who am I and what are my qualifications to be here? I was in the Army for 8 years, and you don't spend 8 years in the Army without learning something about disasters and survival. After that, I was a volunteer firefighter and EMT for 9 years, and then I was a professional police officer for 25 years. And I saw a lot of people in different situations, many disasters, some of them natural, some of them man-made. But through those years of experience and training, I've learned something that I hope that I can help pass on to you guys tonight. So, looking at my notes here, I thought about presenting disaster preparedness as the 614th commandment. There certainly is a lot of information in the Bible about that, but when I researched that, I found that the 614th commandment's already been claimed by Rabbi Emil Fackenheim, who, it's an interesting read. I'd encourage you all to take a look at some of that. So I had to be 615, and we'll talk more about some of the biblical teachings in a few minutes. Tonight we're going to go through 4 different speakers, myself being the first. We're each going to take a few minutes to talk to you about different aspects of this. In later classes we'll talk about first aid, and Pastor Mark will have some other things for us as well. So with that, let's get into the PowerPoints. The first thing I'd like to talk about is complacency. It seems like when we get into disasters and people are in trouble, it's because they haven't prepared. It's because they thought they didn't need to prepare. Somebody's going to be there to help them out, or whatever their issues were. But it's kind of a false sense of security, and that gets people in trouble. So I'd encourage you to take this information to heart tonight. Complacency seems to be a consistent issue for emergency responders wherever they are. After Hurricane Katrina, there's a fire chief down there that took note of the complacency, and he talks about how much work that made for his crews, and they're diverted from doing things that could be more important, but somebody's stuck on a roof or in an attic or something like that. It's because they're complacent and they just haven't prepared. It just creates a problem for a lot of people when you don't prepare. In 2013, earlier this year in New York, there was a snowstorm that was forecast well in advance. People had plenty of time to get home and someplace safe, but they thought they could beat the odds, and they ended up on the freeway stuck in their cars overnight. One motorist there described it as a fearful and chilly night that they spent in their cars before the rescue vehicles started arriving. Governor Cuomo in New York even made note of this. He wants people to be responsible, and preparedness is about being responsible for you and your family. You don't want to become a burden. You want to be an asset. So let's talk about Noah. I think Noah is probably a pretty good example of the prepper mentality. Now I want to take preparations away from the realm of extremist thinking, which seems to be too often where people go when we talk about preparedness. Let's bring this down to a level that makes sense to us. Preparation is actually the word of God. God told Noah, there's a disaster coming, and I want you to prepare for it. And he gave Noah some real specific instructions on what he wanted to do. Build a boat. And you're going to bring all these animals on board, and you're going to bring your family on board, and you're going to go for a little cruise. So Noah accomplished his mission. He built his boat. He went and got his wife and says, well, dear, what do you think? How'd I do on this thing? And she goes, very nice. What's next? And so Noah says, well, I've been working on this so long, I kind of forgot. So he goes into his office, and he pulled his Tanakh off the shelf, and he opened up to Genesis and see what's next. And, oh, there it is. I got to get some food. And Noah starts thinking about the food, and he goes, man, that's a lot of food. Animals, people, how long? When am I going to get all this food? Well, then he says, I have an idea. So a little over a year ago, in the east coast of the United States, we had Hurricane Sandy. They ended up calling it a superstorm because it was so bad. Lots of property loss, homes destroyed, people died, drowned. The interesting thing about this storm to me when I was looking at this was just 7 years before this, we had Hurricane Katrina down in the southeast. And the lessons that could be learned there were tremendous. It was the same things that happened. People died, homes destroyed, people got stuck, and nobody in New York, it seemed, prepared. A full 2 weeks after the storm happened, people were still complaining. Where's the help? They had no power. They talked about some people were using metal garbage cans to fry their food, what food they could find. There was one woman with a single mother with kids in her apartment, had nothing, just living in the dark. We find chaos. 2 weeks here without the police. Crooks are taking advantage of the chaos. They're either just flat not prepared or they're grossly underprepared. And these are things you need to think about. These storms are predicted. There's no reason that we can't be ready for this sort of thing. Sometimes getting ready, maybe it just means getting out of the area. You know it's coming. Why stick it out? Come back when it's done. But what happens if you're in your car when a disaster hits? Sometimes things happen when it's not predicted and it's not forecast. You never know when something's going to happen. You should have things in your car. And the Boston Marathon bombings are a good example of that. When the police went on the hunt for these guys, they locked down the entire city of Boston. People were stuck wherever they were. They weren't allowed to move. Some of them were at home, some were in their car, some were, other places. If you looked out in the street from where you were, you might have seen something like this. And you got to ask, why do you even want to be out there? I found this story from the Boston Globe during that lockdown. People were at medical appointments. They weren't allowed to leave. They're at the hospital, the doctor's office. Whatever they had in their car is what they had for some period of time until they could get back home. It sure calls out for a better case of preparation. What happens if you're stuck in your car on the freeway and a snowstorm hits? Here's a story out of Chicago. This is big city America. You don't expect these sorts of things, but these people found themselves getting in cars with strangers, just trying to stay warm. They were sharing what resources they had. Here's a couple that are stuck on the freeway. They had to fill an empty water bottle with snow and melt it so they could have something to drink. Lisa down here at the bottom of the slide, she just started crying because you feel so helpless. There's just no need to be in that situation. Here's Lindsay from Chicago. She had a freak out moment, and she was crying, and then she finally decides it's time to get practical and do what you've got to do. Craig here, he's going home with a coworker and finds himself stuck. He calls 911, I need some help. The dispatcher says, can't send anybody, do the best you can. It's not what you expect when you call 911, but it can sure be real right here in America. He and his friend shared a Nestle Crunch bar. So bringing this locally, we got Mount St. Helens as an example of how fast things can go wrong. We all knew that Mount St. Helens was going to blow for some period of time before it happened, but you don't know when. And this is the type of story that we've heard many times. So the mountain blows and people decide, let's get out of here. And I'm looking at this car here and I see the driver's door is open. Somebody was in that car. They got stuck. They had to get out and run with whatever they had with them. You know, how much easier could this trip have been if you just had a backpack, at least some water to help them get out of the area? And then we got the Seattle fault zone that everybody talks about. It comes up occasionally. This is going to be a big earthquake when this thing hits. It's going to take out bridges and overpasses and probably damage airport runways. And, you know, God bless the people at FEMA. Those are good-hearted people that think it's their calling to help people. This isn't something you can do that anybody can do. You got to have the heart to go and walk into a crisis where you see a bunch of broken people and destruction every place and set your mind to it and go to work. But when this thing happens, FEMA's not 3 days away. You know, if they got to get across bridges and overpasses and mountain passes where we've had, you know, landslides, help is a long time away. You need to be able to stand on your own. And this happens with good preparation. So I again want to talk about Noah. He's our first prepper. It wasn't based on some extremist way of thinking. It's based on the Word of God and instruction from God. And I think that's how it is with us. The Bible has a lot to say about being prepared. When Yeshua's disciples asked him about when the end times are, what it's going to look like, what did he tell us? He talked about earthquakes, wars, pestilence, famines. We know this stuff is coming. We know it. There's no doubt about it. We got it from the best source we could get it. So it's time to get prepared. This is a course of action, not a course of thought. It's time to get started. So that's the end of what I've got for you. I just want to encourage you to be prepared wherever you are at all times. We're going to have 3 more speakers tonight, and then at the end of it, we're going to take questions if anybody has them. So write them down, remember them, then if you have questions, we'll go through them at the end, okay? Now we're going to turn this over to Jan Decker. She is with Crisis Management Consulting in Sumner. She's actually working with El Shaddai right now to help us develop a crisis management plan, and we're pretty pleased with that. She's going to talk to you about the 615th commandment.
So how are you all? Do you see yourself in that big disaster? See yourself surviving? Okay. I'm just going to take a few minutes. It's my privilege to be able to talk to you tonight. If you have your handouts, you may want to pull it out and sort of follow along. Now, these are not my words. These are the Lord's words. They are all of our words. And so we're just going to take a few minutes to take a look at the word prepare. Okay? So prepare is a call to action. Oh, I'm supposed to be using this, huh? First of all, let's just take a look at what the Lord tells us. Psalms 27:1, and maybe you have your own favorite scripture that talks about this. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? So we're not to be afraid. The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? No one. So we're going to prepare, and let's take a look at Ecclesiastes 7:12. It's right there at the top of your page. For wisdom is protection, just as money is protection. But the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the lives of its possessors. And that means you. Ecclesiastes 7:12. So we're going to start out with that. This is knowledge, and it's our protection. Let's just start with the P, okay? So follow along. What I've done here is I put a couple of words in for each one of these letters that go with the word prepare, and we're just going to take a look at it. I'd like to start with plan, positive, and prosper. Don't always think about positive and prosper when you think about preparedness. Now let's just take a look at what the Lord has told us. Proverbs 16:3, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. Psalms 37:23-24, the steps of a good man and a good woman are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way. And though we may fall, we will not be utterly cast down. Why? For the Lord upholds us with his hand. Now, if you'd like to, why don't you read the next one with me? Because you all love this. This is one of your favorite ones, right? Jeremiah, is it up your app? Jeremiah 29:11. Just read it out with me. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. Okay, we own this when we start planning. Let me tell you what planning is. Now, I work with a lot of businesses and organizations, and the very first thing I tell them when I sit down to them is planning is decision making. It's just like when you get a menu in a restaurant. Okay, you begin to make a decision about what you're going to choose. And that's what you're doing tonight. You're beginning the process of planning. You're making decisions about what you think might happen. Now, thank you, Jim Pickett, for telling us how bad it can get, but that's exactly what planning, emergency preparedness is. It's based on how bad can it get. And we have our two experts that are going to tell us even more today. So the first thing we're going to do is start taking a look and make some decisions. And based upon our anticipated conditions, we're going to identify our needs. We're going to identify the things that we need to procure, and it may be some of the good things that we see here, and we will determine the steps for ourselves and our family. And I would like to bring out one other thing. When you are prepared, the Lord uses you. You're part of the solution, and the Lord uses you to bless others. Now, those of you that have been mothers in this room or are mothers, have you ever packed a lunch? Do you think about that lady that packed that lunch for that little boy? What did she pack? She packed 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes, if you go to Matthew 14, right? And what happened with that food? 5,000 people, and what was left over? I'm really hoping those baskets went back to her and she got to sell them. Do you ever? We didn't hear what happened. I'm hoping they do. But the preparedness that you do. Now listen, there are about 10,000 people that live within the city limits of Sumner, so we just need 2 little boys to take care of the whole city of Sumner and the Lord, right? I don't know how many in Tacoma. It's probably all of us. So what decisions do you need to make? What sort of needs do you have? You need to start making these decisions now. And that's the first part of P. Let's go to R. We talked about responsibility. Let's talk about our relationships, and let's talk about reality and responsibility. Let's take a look at what the Lord has to say to us. Proverbs 27:10. I love this one. This is a really good one. Do not forsake your friend or a friend of your family, and do not go to your relative's house, which could be far away, when a disaster strikes you. Better a neighbor nearby than a relative far away. You agree with that? Okay, what does that say about your relationships? Who do you need to know? Do you know your neighbors? Anybody here not know your neighbors? Make it a point now when you start doing your plan to get to know your neighbors. Now, let's not forget about those relatives, because 1 Timothy 5:8 tells us, anyone who does not provide for their relatives, including those in-laws, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever, and we don't want to be there. So it underscores our responsibility for taking care of our household, and that's part of our plan. So here we are to know our neighbors, those near us, those who may be near us, anybody who lives alone. A lot of older people now live alone. My mother's 83 and still lives alone. And I'm hoping that she does know her neighbors. She has a lot of family in town. So part of your planning and your preparedness is to take care of your responsibilities for yourself and to build up your relationships. If you do not know your neighbors, make it a point to know them. Okay, we're going to go to E. That's one of our favorites. What we're talking about right now, one of them is what's in your wallet. Y'all know that, okay? I asked my husband tonight, I said, hey, if the ATMs went down and we couldn't get any more cash, how much money do you have? And how much did you have? We got $21 to live on, okay, until the power comes back on. So we're going to start fixing that, okay? And who has water in their car? Good for you. Who does not? Okay, so now you know who your neighbors are with water in your car, all right? Good for you. Let's take a look at what the Lord says. Go to the ant, consider his ways, and be wise. Remember that wisdom. Wisdom is your protection. It stores its provisions. And so we are talking about storing up provisions. And we're talking about, our experts are going to tell us where and how much. I want to talk about enough. Often I'm asked, especially by businesses, well, what's enough? Do I need to plan for one day or whatever? I'm not here to answer that for you. These ladies may be able to tell you more. But I will tell you, no matter what it is, and if you are living to paycheck, we're going to talk about that in 1 second here, you probably need to think about a little bit more than just your paycheck to paycheck. And if you're looking at additional resources or needs, let's all to say Philippians 4:19. But my God shall supply all my need according to his riches and glory for Christ Jesus. So no matter what you don't have, if you need it, ask for it. He's going to give it to you. You need to be wise and knowing. And I want to talk about money. You know, money comes in and money goes out. Do you agree? Every month, right? Okay, if you are on automatic income and money automatically gets deposited in your account, there's a 50-50 chance that'll happen when the banks or the power goes down, right? Can't always count on that. But if you've got an automatic payment going out, there's almost 100% chance they're going to make it. I just want to let you know that if money isn't coming in, if you've got it automatically going out, that doesn't help you in a disaster. Secondly, you need to have affairs in order. You need to have 2 to 3 ways of getting to and managing your money. And I always tell businesses this, okay? You need to have alternative ways of getting to your accounts. If you are the sole signer on your account, that's not good enough. You need to have someone else there. If you've got stuff stuck away in some bank deposit box, forget it. During a disaster, you're not going to be getting that stuff. So you really need to think about how to take care of yourself. And if for some reason you're incapacitated, you need to have your affairs in order. Let's go to the second P, protection and prevention. And this is so that things don't happen to us. This is really important. And we're going to take a look. There is a lot in the scriptures on this. Folks, we're rich on this. And I'm probably going to take these out, dear, print them out and go tape them on our disaster boxes right now so God can read about it, okay, when he's looking in our garage. The Lord can keep me safe. Keep me safe, God, for I take refuge in you. And we're talking about refuge, safe haven, protection from harm. Keep me as the apple of your eye. Don't you want to be the apple of God's eye? I mean, I know Pastor Bill always says that's Israel, but it could be us too. Okay, so we've got that here. Hide me in the shadow of your wings. And 18:10, the name of the Lord is a fortified tower. The righteous run to it and are safe. How many of you have ever read Psalms 91 over your family? Boy, I want to see every hand raised. Promise me before the week is out, you will go home, stand up with your family, and read Psalms 91. We read that before we go out in snowstorms. I've read it driving in those roads in Montana a few times. How about Psalms 23? Anybody read that over your family? Okay, let's take Psalms 23. And the Lord will prepare a table in the presence of mine enemies. And is a storm your friend? No, you want him to prepare a table in the presence of my enemies. I bet you didn't know that was a disaster verse. It is. So let's talk about that. Protection from weather, power, outages, diseases, threats, risk, damage, and loss. You know, one of the biggest things that happened in those earthquakes for people with chimneys, brick chimneys, is they fall down. If you don't have your hot water heater bolted down, it's going to fall over. If you don't have your fabulous china cabinet bolted down, it might fall over. So you may want to do a home hazard hunt and take some action. Let's take a look at aware. We like this one because it's not our A. A is aware, it's alert, and it's to take action. We aren't here just to learn about it. We are here to actually take action. So let's take a look at our verse. Proverbs 27:12. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but what happens to the simple, which is the simple-minded? They just keep going, didn't they? I can run out that storm. What does that tell you about them? They should have read this before they go, and they pay the penalty. And we don't want the penalty to be our life, okay? Or stuck in a car on the freeway with people we don't know. Okay, so, I want to go back to the last one and tell you the most important thing you can do is get yourself, one of the most important things you can do this week is get yourself a radio, an emergency radio. Who has a NOAA emergency radio at home? Oh, good, I got a lot of hands. If you do not have one, go get one. You can buy one cheaply at Walmart. They're not expensive. I got one free at the last conference, and I gave it to Tina, so I know El Shaddai has one now. So you need one in your workplace. You need one in your car radio, in your AF and FM radio. You should be able to get your emergency information. That's where you're going to get information. And what we always tell our executives is during a disaster, you don't have 3 things. You don't have enough information, true real-time information, and the same thing is with us, okay? Everything we're getting is a little bit delayed and it's not complete. You don't have enough resources, which is people, food, things, cars, gas. You're never going to have enough, and you don't have enough time to make a decision about what to do with those resources on the information that you have. So that's what you're dealing with. So we want to make sure that we have our alert radio. Now I want to go to R, second R, and I like this one. And this is something that people don't often do, and I'm going to encourage you to do it. We've already done this with El Shaddai. We've had 2 opportunities to do training, haven't we, Jim Pickett? Good. And we are talking about to rehearse our plan. Once you have your plan in place, talk about it, discuss it, rehearse it. This is a very important part of a business, is to practice it. You can do this at your family dinner. If you're not used to doing it, just talk through. We call that in the official word, what, a tabletop exercise. That's exactly what it is, where you get around the table and you say, this is what we're going to do. And make sure that you are ready. Let's take a look at our verses. Okay, we already talked about this one, Luke 17:26. Just as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the days of the Son of Man. If you haven't talked about what's going to happen to you, take some of these scenarios and say, in an earthquake, we're going to do this. In a long-term power outage, we're going to do this. If the roads are closed, we're going to do this. And then I would like to talk about being ready. Just talk about this for 5 seconds. I really think that one of the pastors will probably come back with this. Matthew 25:1. There were 10 virgins, right? 5 of them, they all had lamps, right? 5 of them had what? And 5 of them did not. My question, which group are you in? Let's get the E back up there. Now we're at our E. We're preparing. We're at the end of preparing, and I want to talk about everything in the end, and we have 2 more E's. We want to talk about our scriptures. First one is, these are 2 E's, Ephesians 6:13. Therefore, put on the whole armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, it's talking about disaster, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything, to stand. So I'm encouraging you with that last E, that it means everything, so that you can stand. You stand with your stuff, and you are now part of the solution. You are ready with your 5 loaves of bread and your fish. Let's look at Ecclesiastes 7:8. Better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof. Better is the end of the matter. I want you to come to the end of your plan. So I'm hoping you're taking this and taking some notes and going through it. Now, it's better to be patient than it is to be proud. So don't be too proud to prepare. We want to make sure we make it. I would like to leave you with this. First of all, I'd like to, hang on one second, I'd like to just say a real quick prayer, okay? Dear Lord, we just pray over those of us in this room that we will prepare. We ask you to send your spirit of truth into us and tell us right now, reveal to us what we need to do to get ourselves prepared. We ask this in the name of Yeshua. Amen. So 1 Peter 3:15 says, always prepared, be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you the reason for the hope you have. And I hope that in disaster, you're able to do that for the hope you have. Thank you very much. I give it back to Jim.
I'm almost embarrassed to come up to the microphone for that. She's so lively and keeps your attention. I'm just a cop, you know, so. Great. Next is Katie Hoffman. She's with the Pierce County NET, Network of Emergency Teams, Neighborhood Emergency Teams, that's it. And she's going to talk to you about some of the practical preparedness things you can be doing.
Hi, everybody. I want you all to be ready for any kind of emergency that comes. And we have just a real quick little film that'll only take a couple minutes. I want you to be aware in the Northwest we have storms.
Disasters can be devastating. In an instant, everything around you can change. How you react can help protect your family, can help change chaos to order, can reduce injuries, and save lives. You can make a difference if you have a plan. At the introductory meeting, you learned why the Northwest is so vulnerable to different types of disasters. Natural disasters such as severe storms, earthquakes, floods, or volcanic unrest, or even man-made disasters such as chemical spills, a pipeline explosion, or even acts of terrorism. These can all occur in Pierce County, perhaps without warning. Severe earthquakes like those that have repeatedly rocked the Puget Sound can be the most frightening of all. They come suddenly, without warning, and they can cause severe human misery and property destruction in just a few minutes. However, no matter what the event, having a response plan in place ahead of time saves lives, reduces property damage, and frees up emergency responders.
So are you ready now?
The first hour following a disaster is considered the golden 60 minutes. Minutes when there is the greatest opportunity to save lives and reduce damage. Experience has shown us that police and fire personnel will not be available to answer our calls. Our safety and survival during this time is our responsibility. We become the first responders. By understanding what our hazards are and planning ahead of time on how to respond, we can save valuable time in helping ourselves and helping our neighbors.
It is felt that if you are prepared for an earthquake, you are also prepared for events that carry some warning, such as storms, floods, and other weather-related emergencies. It is important for us to recognize that earthquakes are frequent occurrences in the Northwest. With advances in technology, scientists are finding more faults capable of inflicting serious damage. While we don't know when the next one will be, we do know it is a matter of when, not if. Let's think about what might happen if a severe earthquake with violent shaking, perhaps a 7.4, were to strike right here, right now. Who and what would you be most concerned about in your neighborhood?
A little unnerving. It could happen. I guess it's when it's going to happen. What I brought tonight was the things that I think you absolutely need to have. The kit is provided by Pierce County if you take the class. I personally have a NOAA radio. It has a crank. It will keep my cell phone going if I need to. It also has a really neat flashlight. I have a whistle if I need help. I have 2 whistles. I keep change. I have cash for an ATM. I don't mean an ATM, but a vending machine if I need it. And I put all of these in various little places. The most important thing to have, I think, is I put mine in a fanny pack. This is on my bed, so that if there's a disaster, a fire, if I have to get out of my place, I love this. Our church did this one year. It's a little knife that does has all kinds of tools in it. I have a whistle. I have my handy screwdriver that I can't get out, but there. It's a little screwdriver with all kinds of handles. And a whistle. It also has lots of pockets. I have a magnifying glass if I need to start a fire and the sun would come out, we'd be okay. That's kind of questionable in this country. I took a picture of my driver's license. It's in here because I may not have any ID on me. I have a flasher that I can turn on if I need help, which is pretty cool, or put on my shoulder if I'm walking and I don't want to get hit in the road. All you have to do is learn how to turn it off. Because I wear glasses, I have an extra pair of glasses in my little fanny pack. This is just an extreme emergency. I just have it with me all the time. This is a hottie. This is my favorite little hammer because it comes apart and it has all kinds of tools. You never know when you need a screwdriver, and it's both a Phillips and a flathead. All of this fits in this little fanny pack. Those are the most, I think, important things: your glasses, your prescriptions, a pair of gloves. You never know. Then the second thing I have is my grab-and-go bag. This also, I could leave in my car, or I could leave it by my front door. I live in an apartment, and there's only one door out. So I keep this either by my bed or sometimes I leave it in the car. And what I love about this is it has my reading light. So if I'm really bored while there's an emergency going on, I can read my books or my Bible, because my Bible's in here. Like you could be bored, right? And then I have another little toolkit, because you never know if you have to cut away the branches of the tree that fell down in front of your house or your apartment. And then I have a really cool pair of earmuffs so my ears don't get cold. Another pair of goggles, because I may not have remembered to have that kit. A little manicuring set. And part of it is, I think the thing I want to stress the most to all of you is evaluate where you are, where you live, and where you go. Because you may need your grab-and-go bag. If you work every day outside the city or away from your home, you need this. A key holder has my extra keys. Not only to my mailbox, hopefully there'll be a post office left, but anyway. A pair of scissors, again, another knife. I think a knife will be very valuable. This bag holds my radio so that if something really drastic happens, I've got my radio in this and I could carry this and it will keep my cell phone charged so I can use it. I do have another flashlight. This one's really good for path, if you want to. And I highly recommend the LED lights. For food, this is the neatest thing. It's tuna fish in an aluminum thing, and you can get them in all kinds of containers. I've got my hot tea and tuna fish that would keep me going. Of course, I put chocolate in there, too. And I didn't forget my spoon and fork and a knife to cut open the package. And then this is in my grab and go. It has everything I need in it. My makeup, some toilet paper, some soap, first aid kit, anything that you personally would need. It doesn't have to be your whole medicine cabinet. Just what would you need if I had to walk out the door and go find some place, or if I head over to the center to help other people? I've got this with me and I'm okay. I can brush my teeth, I can shampoo my hair, I can still put on my lipstick. And I do keep my coins. These are rolled coins, so I highly recommend $100 worth of coins, bills, small bills, quarters, nickels, dimes, because everybody will be trying to cash 20s or 50s or 100s. The ATM will not work. The other emergency advice that I think is one of the most important is to keep your gas tank half full. You never know if you're going to get stuck in traffic. My water, I usually use the mint water because it would keep my stomach just soothed, and mint is soothing. This is the book that you get when you take the NET class. It tells you week by week or day by day, it'll show you how to hold up or to strap up your water heater, how to turn off your gas if you need to turn off the gas. And don't turn off your natural gas if you don't smell it, because you have to have the gas company come and turn it on. So it really has some great information. We actually do on-site things where we'll use an incident and we'll figure out how to handle what happens if there's a power line in front of the house. This is what you get. This is the one I got from Eatonville. It shows me if there's a lahar, a flood, if we have an earthquake, and it shows us where to go, how it would affect my little community. Where I live, most of the time I would just stay at home. Don't leave if you can be warm and safe and dry. In my car, this is what I got for a present from my son, and it's put out by Is it Bridgestone? It has this really neat, whatever you call this, flashlight. But what I thought was really cool was it has a blanket. I was going to get a sleeping bag, but this blanket is really cool. And then it has, I guess I don't even know, a compressor? I don't know what this is, an air compressor. What would you use an air compressor for? Oh, tire, duh, okay. And then it has all these great little goodies, the tapes, the wires, the plugs, the batteries. Be careful with batteries, they're heavy, so you don't want a battery for each thing. You find one thing that you can use the same battery for. And then I just tuck everything in this little case that folds up, and I can just wheel it in or out, and I'm good to go. Rain boots are a must. I have my socks and my gloves in my shoes. These you want under your bed, because if there's a hurricane, a windstorm, or whatever, there's broken glass, you don't want to be in your slippers. So I haven't figured out yet you have to sleep in your clothes, but it's like, okay, if I have to climb out my bedroom window, where's my robe? Where's my boots? Anyway, and I put on this for all of you the list. These are the websites for Pierce County and for the Washington Department of Energy. And I want to put a plug for all the people that are the emergency people. We did an exercise in Eatonville. I'm only a volunteer, but we had an incident in Eatonville, and all the emergency responders. Was really neat to see everybody work together, come together, and make a wonderful, wonderful event out of a tragedy. So they're there to help you. Pierce County has an incredible center where there's gas, there's food, there's provision, and it comes, all the people that are involved in it are not only the firemen, management, logistics, health department, medical department. They really are there for us. So I just wanted to put a plug in for them. And we'll sure have questions afterwards. So write them down. Be glad to answer them. Now, you're all going to go home and get ready, right? Thank you.
There's a lot of good information on these websites. I'm going to leave this up here for a minute so that maybe if you didn't get it before, you have a chance to look at it now. This is piercecounty.wa.gov/OEM. That's the Office of Emergency Management. The other website's for the Department of Health. I encourage you all to do some of your own research. Find ways to prepare that work for you. We're throwing out some kind of general information tonight, but there's a lot of information out there that'll work for where you are and what you do. Think about maybe having a kid in your car that has water and food, maybe a good pair of boots that you can walk in if you need to, a blanket to stay warm. Have something else at home. Maybe if you're in an office or you have a work vehicle, maybe another kit there. Maybe you want to carry something with you all the time, but that can be kind of inconvenient. So the point is to kind of be flexible and be creative, but most of all be prepared for the different ways that things can happen and cause us some trouble down the road. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just buying a couple of minutes while they're changing the microphone up there. We've got Elizabeth Smotlot coming next. She's a food storage consultant. Her website is fooddisasterplan.com, and she's going to talk to you over here at this table here about some of the ways that you can prepare. So here's Elizabeth.
Yay! I think I'm ready. Can you hear me? Good. Hi. Well, when Mark asked me to speak tonight, I was so honored. It's just pretty amazing to be able to talk to my congregation. I love it. Also a little bit nervous because I haven't really spoken to a crowd this big before. But what I want to do is tell you a little bit about my journey in preparedness. About 3 years ago, I just felt this nudge inside that I had to be prepared. I was really overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what I'd need for preparedness. And so I thought, I don't like canned foods. I don't know how to cook beans. I have no clue what to do. And so I'm a researcher, so the first thing I did was start researching. A friend and I, we looked around for different resources, and we came across the company that I'm currently working with. It's called Thrive Life, and it's an emergency preparedness resource company. And decided this was the way for me to go to get prepared. So I started my plan. I realized then after doing this that if I was so hopeless and confused and overwhelmed, a lot of other people might be hopeless and confused and overwhelmed as well. And so I started doing some consultations one-on-one with people, doing little home classes for people, and helped a lot of people get prepared. And a lot of people in the congregation I did this for, and it's been so cool because I've made a lot of friends through this and helped a lot of people get going. So I want to go into my presentation now. That's a little bit about how I got started. I think this first slide says a lot. Disasters are inevitable, but the outcome is not. If we're prepared, the better the outcome will be. So I think it's something that really behooves us to really start being serious about preparation. We have a lot of hazards. They're real. In the Northwest, we have tons of them. You saw Katie's film. If you're watching on the internet, you have hazards that are peculiar to your area. Here in the Northwest, we have so much. We have a volcano in our backyard. We have flooding. We have a lot of rivers. And it seems every spring when there's a melt, we have a lot of problems with flooding. We have snow and ice every winter. It seems like we have about a week where there's ice and snow, the roads are cut off, electricity's gone, and we're on our own. We're cut off from our supplies. And so that's a concern here. Terrorism, civil unrest is a possibility. And then the one that I think most of us are concerned with is the big one. This earthquake that they say is long overdue, is just a matter of when, can be happening. If that happens, our infrastructure is going to go down. The bridges, the overpasses, it's going to be a mess, and our supply trucks are going to be gone. I live on the other side of the Narrows Bridge, and I've been told by Pierce County that if we have a major event like that, earthquake, it's going to be at least a week, just for inspection, that bridge is going to be down. And that's going to cut off our supply routes for food and gas, and it's going to be a really hard time for a lot of people. So when we think about these threats, what happens? Our bodies react. I mean, are you reacting now? I mean, I'm just kind of going, ooh, myself after seeing Katie's film and realized, as much as preparedness as I've done, I still don't have a radio of all things. And your heart starts pounding, you actually have a physical reaction. And we try to get to homeostasis, get calm, so what do? This is what we do. We bury our head, we ignore it. This is how we calm ourselves down. And then we go on with our happy little life, But that's not really a good plan. I was part of that. I'm sure a lot of people feel this way. And it shows in the statistics that there's probably only 1% of our population that has even 3 days worth of food and supplies to take care of themselves. That's a real scary statistic. So the worst time to prepare for emergencies is during one. Once it happens, preparation time is over. What you have is what you have. And we're the Fred Meyer generation. We expect our stores to be full of supplies 24/7, go get what we need whenever we want it. And if we have a major event, this is what our shelves will look like. And we're going to see a lot of hungry, panicked people. And we don't want to be part of the problem. We want to be part of the solution. There's absolutely no downside to being prepared. Absolutely none. So what do we have to be prepared for? Government used to recommend 3 days, 3 ways. And then Katrina hit, and we saw that the cavalry didn't come in 3 days. People were stranded. They were on their own. So now the recommendations are 10 to 14 days. When people ask me what to be prepared for, I just say, well, 14 days at least. But the rest of the, whether it's a year, whether it's 3 months, whether it's long term, that's between you and the Father. And you have to pray about it and to see what He's telling you, because it might not be just you're praying for, preparing for. It could be others. And I know some people here that feel that way. So I'm looking at the 3 different areas of preparedness that we need to look at. And the first is first aid. That's probably the most simple and affordable area of preparedness. You can go to about any retail store, find a first aid kit. But I'll tell you a secret about my favorite emergency preparedness store is. It's the Dollar Tree. So in your packet, there's a flyer, and I have a list of first aid supplies. Take that list and go to the Dollar Tree and just fill up a bucket full of bandages. They even have liquid skin. They even have air horns. They have dust masks. They have everything. And this is such an easy way to an affordable way to get some of your first aid supplies. Another way is to get a 72-hour grab-and-go bag. This is the kit that I work with. It is really intensive. It's for 2 people, 72 hours, everything you would need for basic survival. It has a little bit of food, Coast Guard, biscuits, water, toilet paper, you'll see the whole list. It's also in your handout you can look at. But this is a really good base. It has a first aid kit. And then there's plenty of room to add in your prescriptions, your eyeglasses, all the personal things that you might need. This costs $78, which is just a steal because I added up all the different ingredients in this kit or contents, and it would have cost well over $100 if I did it myself. So the next area is water, and it's the most important. We can go for a long time without food, but not very long without water. It's probably the most important thing that we need to do. Water storage. The recommendation for water is 1 gallon per person per day. So if you have 4 people in your family, that's 4 gallons per day, and then you multiply it by the amount of time that you want to be prepared. That is survival. It's not cooking, it's not washing, it's just survival. So water is so important. A lot of people think of the 55-gallon drums. That's some way people go. I live in a rental, so that's not very practical for me. If I move, I can't carry my 450-pound worth of water with me. And so I use the water bricks. I'm going to run over here and just show you how cool these are. This is what I have. I have several of these. They're very ergonomic. I can carry 2 of them. It holds 3.5 gallons each. They're BPA free. You can put food in it, you can put water in it. You can even put it halfway full of water and use it as a flotation device. What's cool about it is they stack like Legos. And so you put this in really tight spaces, and if you have to go, your water's with you. You don't have to worry about a 55-gallon drum of water. So you can stack it and put them under your bed. Another thing is, if nothing else, just go to the grocery store and Costco, pick up some bottled water. But remember, water has a shelf life. It's about 6 months or so you have to be rotating it. If you do water storage in a drum or in the water bricks, there is a solution that you can get, and it's about $15, and this will help preserve your water for about 5 years, so you don't have to be constantly rotating your water. It's a really handy thing to have. The next thing to talk about is water filtration. So maybe you have water stored, maybe you don't. But if you have a source of fresh water somewhere, a stream, a lake, anywhere, if you have a really good water filter, you can have plenty of water. And I've got some examples here. This is my all-time favorite product. This is by a company called Sawyer. My company sells it. But it comes in a little kit, and what you do is you attach it to either a 5-gallon bucket. I carry this in my car with this little milk carton. If I find a stream, I can scoop the water out, gravity pulls it through, and it will filter 1 million gallons of water. And it is 1 million gallons, and it costs $70. Just an amazing product. What it does, it will filter bacteria, cysts, protozoa, Giardia E. coli. It will not filter viruses. We do have a filter that's an upgrade from this that will filter viruses, and that's about $145. And that will filter 1 million gallons as well. This is a great community water filter because the flow rate on here is quite a lot, and you can get many, many gallons a day out of this for your community or your neighborhood. Another wonderful product that I think everybody should have in their car, every family member should get one. Right, Lisa? Yes. Have this in your car. This is a great water filter. It has an advanced filter in it. This will filter viruses and bacteria. Pour the dirty water in, drink it out. 100 gallons this will do, and you can buy replacement filters for this. It's an amazing gift item because it could save somebody's life. Love that product. So that is water. The next area is food. We need nutrition especially during a crisis. Good nutrition is very important. Eating beans and rice for 7 days, or they say spam here, this isn't my slide. It says it's not balanced nutrition. Balanced food includes fruits, vegetables, meats, and dairy. But how do we get that? What are the types of food storage? Well, there's lots of different options. You can get nutrition bars. Stock up on those. You can get the Coast Guard high-calorie bars. You can get MREs, meals ready to eat, canned food, rice and beans. You can get ready-made entrees that you see in the box. You'll see a lot of emergency preparedness sites will have buckets for a month's supply of food. Those have ready-made entrees in it. Or you consider dehydrated foods or freeze-dried. So all these different items, I think I'm going to go back to this slide, because the different types of food storage, when you're looking at food storage, you have to consider two things: shelf life and nutritional value. And if you're looking at the shelf life of the nutrition bars, the Coast Guard bars, the MREs, canned food, that you've got about 3 to 5 years, and so you're going to have to keep on rotating them. And if you don't like them, you're going to have a lot of waste. I want to talk about, but if you're going into something like dehydrated foods, they have a shelf life of about 7, 8 years, lasts a little bit longer. Freeze-dried foods can last up to 25 years. So it's a really, I'm going to show you that it's really my favorite choice for food storage. In nutrition on these different items, again, canned foods, dehydrated foods, there is a heat source, a heat process in processing these foods. So you lose about 40% of your nutrition. In freeze-dried foods, because there's no heat process, the foods can get fully ripened, and then it's flash frozen, and you only lose about 2% of your nutrition. When you're considering maybe those buckets, those meals for a month buckets that you have, they have a place. They're wonderful, and I'd recommend, if that's what you want to do, just get it. Just remember, though, they're very, very, very high in sodium because they have to have the preservatives in there. And if they say beef stroganoff, it's not going to be beef. It's probably going to be beef-flavored, textured vegetable protein, which is you'll hear the initials TVP. So it's a soy protein. So this would be good for an emergency, but not on a real long-term basis. So freeze-dries, I'm really partial to it because of the nutritional value and because of their long shelf life of 25 years. Also, with dehydrated foods, it takes more water to rehydrate. You use very little with the freeze-dried foods. You can actually eat it as is. You can eat right out of the can. So if you're limited in water, you can get your nutrition without having to rehydrate it. I'm really proud that the company I work with, most of our fruits and vegetables are non-genetically modified, and they're not certified organic, but they're non-GMO, so that's really important. Even our corn, it's hard to get that. So I'm a proponent of creating your home store. Our ancestor did that. Generations have done that. They've gone hunting. They'll salt their beef. They'll make stew. They'll can it. They'll have gardens. It's pretty hard for us in our busy lives to do that. And our freeze-dried options really are a really good option because you can have a great variety of food like you would have a home pantry. You can get vegetables, fruits, eggs, cheese, meats, even freeze-dried yogurt and sour cream. And you can cook with your regular recipes. So if you're in a long-term emergency, this is what I feel is best for a long-term emergency, because you're able to have good nutrition. And another neat thing about the freeze-dried foods, with a 25-year on open shelf life is great, but even better is if you open the can, you can put it on your counter and use it for about 6 to 18 months, depending on the product. Last night, I didn't have any. I got home late, and I was hungry, and I just wanted to make a quick soup, so I got some of my chicken. My chicken's been open for several months. You can just have this can sitting on your counter, and I make a good, nutritious meal in a couple of minutes. And so if an emergency happens tomorrow, I have it. And then I have some back stock, too. So we talked about a lot of different things. I know I put a lot of information in front of you, but just the thing is, like Jim says, just be prepared. It's not about being fearful. It's just about being organized, putting together a plan, and I hope some of my research can help you. Just make a plan. Use that planner that I have. There's a checklist so that you can go through your house and start gathering things together. If you don't have one, make sure you get one on the way out. Go to the Dollar Tree to get your first aid. But emergencies can happen anytime. There's no downside to being prepared. Be ready to take care of yourself and your neighbors for about 14 days or more. Consider first aid, water storage, water filtration, and what kind of food you want to have stored. And then with foods, you also have to have something to cook with. And I've got really cool little thing right here. It's a little stove that you pop up. It costs $18. There's a little fuel source in here, or you can use twigs, or you can use pine cones, anything along the road. And put this in your car, and you can have a heat source if you had a pan and some food. I just had to bring my favorite little volcano stove, though. This uses wood, charcoal, and propane, and this would be awesome in an emergency. I use mine for cooking in the summer. So fuel source, don't forget your pets. They need first aid, food, and water, too. Katie says half tank of gas. I'm kind of preferring the full tank of gas. Shelter, Jim reminded me of shelter. When Israel left Egypt, they had their tents. So consider getting a tent, some sort of warmth, sleeping bags, have it a place where you can do it. And then just the comforts, a deck of playing cards, having some light source, maybe something to charge your cell phone. This little guy right here is a solar-charged lantern, crank lantern, and it can also charge your cell phone. It's just a really neat little product. There's just so many things that you can make yourself more comfortable in an emergency. So use your resources. Katie has a lot of great resources. I have some of these things on your handout. The county resources, their websites. Use me. I work with people all the time. I do free consultations if somebody wants some help. I put together a little group, and I can come to your house and go over the same things with them. People can try the foods. You can customize the program to you. You can also earn some free credits towards food, because a lot of people just don't have the money to do this. And by having a group over, hosting a group, you can earn credits towards getting your supply. And I also want to say, if any of you do take advantage of this and do some ordering through me, and you let me know you heard it from El Shaddai is going to get 10% back, 10 cents on every dollar that you spend, because we want El Shaddai to have some emergency preparedness products here on hand for us. And so online, people, I know that there's going to be some things coming up in a little bit. Some of this, my handouts will be coming up online probably on Thursday, but you can always reach me at info@fooddisasterplan.com. That's INFO, like information, at fooddisasterplan.com, and that's on your handout. And on your handout, there's a little piece of paper that looks like this. And if you fill this out with your email and contact information, give me an idea of what you need, what kind of plan you want to put together. A 1-month, 3-month plan, I can help you work it out. But if I have your email, I will send you the online version of this catalog, this resource catalog. It's a wonderful catalog. It's got recipes in it. I'll have the price list. I send you the specials that we have every month. And there's a great big Black Friday special coming up Thanksgiving weekend that you might want to take advantage of. I'm thinking if there's anything else I need to tell you. I think that's it, and we'll have time for questions afterwards. And thanks again so much. Jim, you going to take over? Great.
Well, that's about all we have for tonight. Does anybody have any questions for Katie or Elizabeth or Jan? I see somebody in the back. Go ahead.
So just a couple other things that I had thought of that could also be useful based on what you said was like, photos of family members, especially if they're minors and like don't have photo ID. I'm just thinking, if my phone dies and I can't find my kid, God forbid, I'd be like, here, this is what she looks like, and then maybe a crowbar, for prying things open if you don't have keys or something. I don't know, these are just things that were coming to my mind, a map of the area, because again, I rely on my phone for that all the time. I don't know the area as well as I should, so paper maps are good. Yeah, disposable cell phone, another thing she said. A ladder for anyone who has a house with second stories, like you were saying, climbing out of your window, so if you don't have a tree nearby. And I've seen those made where they just roll up and then you can drop them out the window. So I don't know if that was helpful to anyone, but just things that came to my mind. So, and I always have a landline phone that I can plug in too. Not that it would work in a case where there wasn't electricity, but if for some reason there was, that could also work. Anyways, thanks.
Okay, any more questions? Oh, Rich.
And I want to know about those blue Legos. Is that part of Thrive?
It is, yes.
Okay, so it's in the...
yes, it's in the catalog,
okay,
yeah.
Great, thank
They
you.
run about $16, $17 each.
Okay. Last call for questions. Seeing none. Oh, is there one there?
I just wanted to let everybody know that everybody in the room has 40 gallons of water at home that they're storing without realizing it.
That's right. That's right.
In an emergency, most people forget about the hot water tank.
Yeah, your water tank for your hot water contains as many gallons of water as it's designed to hold. Mine's 80. I know others are 50. Okay. I see Michael.
I guess I could just address it to the whole panel. Do you have any type of suggestions on communications? I've often been told that we should have somebody over in eastern Washington or down in Florida because the local communications can break down, and so that I could get a message to somebody outside of my area to let them know where I'm at or that I'm okay, and they can, funnel information and communications about our whereabouts, because we don't know where we'll be, when that time is.
That's great advice. The best thing you can do is if you have a relative or a friend that lives out of the state and their state's not being affected by the disaster, just call them and tell them you're safe. And then everybody else in your family can call them and they'll connect it. The other thing we're doing, we have 3 people already in our community, our El Shaddai community, that are working with ham radios, kosher ham radios. So actually 4, so that we'll be able to communicate at some point. Your landline will work for a while. Your cell phones, if you use your texting, will work for a while. So.
Okay, I think in the interest of conserving as much of the evening as we can, it's probably time to bring it to a close. Everybody will be available for more questions in the back if you have some. I think the thing I want you to take away from tonight is, no matter how big a disaster is, when it comes, if we're prepared, maybe it's just nothing more than an inconvenience. Let's try to keep it on that level, okay? Thank you, Father, for the time we've had together this evening. I ask again that you just bless this knowledge and bless it to people's hearts and minds and souls and lead them to where you think they need to be in the future. We all have some similar experiences where you've brought us to a place of preparedness, and I thank you, Father, that you know what we need and where we're going to be. In Yeshua's name, amen. Have a good night.
Thank you for studying with us today. If you have any questions regarding the material discussed, please contact me at my email address. It's pastormark@elshaddaiministries.us. Be blessed and shalom.